Welcome to this live video feed. How is everyone this evening? Perhaps it is your morning, it is your afternoon. My apologies for being a few minutes late. I had some technical difficulties. I'm hoping that it is all in order now. So you can give me a shout out if you're here, if you're coming on the live feed, and a number one in the comment box to let me know that you're here. So this evening is an interesting topic because it's one of those topics that is a little bit covert, so to speak, to use a term. Good evening, Natalie. Hi, Charmaine. How are you? Lovely to see you. Sharon, welcome. Place number one in the comment box if you're coming on. Yeah, Patricia, hello. So we're really referring to betraying or even sabotaging our relationships. Now, this is really interesting because this isn't just in our relationships, our external relationships, but it's also our relationship to self. And when I'm speaking to many of the points that I'm going to raise this evening with respect to some of the ways that we sabotage our relationships, or that we betray our beloved, or we betray our intimate partner, or we betray ourselves even as well in that relationship, think about also and make reference to how this may apply to you, for you, against you. Okay, that's really important to also begin to grasp that. It's a very powerful topic, and the behaviours that we will be speaking to this evening, that we'll be making reference to, are really about who we are really about our value sets, are really about our belief systems, how we choose to function in this world, how we choose to interrelate, how we choose to relate with others, how we choose to connect with others as well. So I will be speaking very specifically to intimate relationships, but just know that these concepts and these posturings, they apply to every relationship and every facet of life and every facet of being, yeah? So that's a really important point to note, really super important point to note. So let me know how you're feeling, by the way. How do we feel about this topic? Because I'm actually not going to speak to infidelity here. I'm not speaking to betraying our partner in a sexual way. That's very obvious in relationship, okay? And not that it doesn't carry any weight or value. Of course it does, but depending on, of course, the arrangement that two people have. So what we're speaking to there, because I want to clear this up actually, because this is the obvious. So when two people come together, when two people make a commitment, and that commitment is broken in this sense in terms of sexual infidelity. So what's the term I'm thinking of? Sorry, I've forgotten a word. Non-consensual. So non-consensual polyamory or polygamy, yeah, that's obvious that is betraying our partnerships, or betraying the relationship, and betraying self, of course, in that space as well. What we are going to open up today is very different. What we are opening up today is the subtleties in relationship. The subtleties in relationship to self and in relationship to others that really break down the relationship over a compounded period of time. And that is equally as painful and equally as tragic in a different way. Especially because everybody has different trigger points, emotional, psychological, historical, cultural trigger points. And what this means is that sometimes you can be in relationship and what triggers you deeply may not trigger the other at all. So the subtlety in what we're speaking to this evening is very different, and it's the covert, it's the underlying, it's what isn't so obvious. So if you're new to these live feeds, place new in the comment box. And if you're just coming on, place number one in the comment box, so I know that you're here. And let me know how you're feeling about this. We've had some comments. So Natalie says it's such a painful topic, and it is, Natalie. It's deeply painful. But if we don't bring this to light, Look, being hurt, being emotionally distressed, being hurt by those that we love, it's painful. Like, it's deeply, deeply painful. But we need to speak to this. We need to open these conversations up, because when we have awareness, when we are conscious around something, around an area of life, when we are conscious around this particular dynamic, it becomes malleable. It means that we can do something. Sorry, I think I've got something in my eye. But we can do something with it. In other words, we can choose consciously and openly to be different. And let me know how you're feeling about this topic as well. Let me know if it's beginning to trigger something within you. Let me know if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling deep discomfort around what we're about to open up. Because it can be confronting. It can be deeply confronting. And know that this community, this tribe, it's a sacred space here. So it's safe for you to express yourself. It is okay for you to be feeling a little bit awkward around this, to feel discomfort around this, and just know that together we unpack this, okay? Together we unpack this. But it's an important topic to understand, because so many relationships just are destroyed, simply destroyed, because we are so unaware of our behaviors. And our behaviors are intimately connected to and linked to our childhood upbringing. Not always, but generally. How we choose to interpret particular experiences, how the belief systems that we hold within ourselves, the models of reality that we hold within ourselves, the unconscious language and dialogue that takes place, the discourse, the unconscious discourse that takes place within ourselves over and over again, that directs us in a particular place, that directs us to a particular place, and drives us in a particular direction. So the first point I wish to speak to this evening is superficial. So let me get really clear. What is destroying our relationships? What is betraying our relationships? I'm going to list a number of different posturings and interactive styles that actually do this, an unconscious patterning that destroys our relationships over time. And the first is superficiality and relationship status. If we focus too much on the superficiality of relationship, the physical, not that there's anything wrong with the physicality. Physicality in relationship is deeply important for various reasons: biological, psychological, emotional. But when we focus too much on the superficiality, and I'm going to do another live feed, another podcast on this, on superficiality in relationships and how it is so deeply destructive. But we receive so many cultural messages in our lives that teach us to think that we're not good enough, not important enough, or not desirable enough. Especially if we're single, if we're not in a relationship. So in response to this, what many people do is they go on this crazy, obsessive quest to find a partner, to get the engagement ring, to get married. And this way of approaching relationships, or even then being in relationships, it puts the label relationship on a pedestal. And all of a sudden, we're not looking at the relationship for what it could be. Rather, we are observing the relationship for this idea that we have it needs to be. Whether it be a trophy wife or a trophy husband. And it becomes about what culture dictates. It becomes about what other people think and feel about our relationship. And this is a very simple example, of course, but one that is very valid in very prevalent in today's society of competition, in today's very individualistic society. So it distracts us from what is most important, and that is having a deeply human experience with the person that we are with. Being entrenched in the fullness of the journey. But rather, if we are focused on the superficiality, we are losing in the relationship. And that takes its toll on how the other interacts with us as well. It's known as a fantasy bond. So it's not real. It's not a real relationship. It's based on superficiality. There's no depth or breadth in the relationship. It cannot last. There's no longevity and sustainability in superficiality. So what happens is the relationship will end, and it doesn't end peacefully. It generally ends with heartache and hardship and pain and difficulty and challenge. Fantasy bond is one of the most important factors leading to the deterioration of love and deep bonding and attraction in a relationship. When we choose to make the relationship label or what the relationship means to us based on other people's interpretation of that relationship a higher priority than the actual relationship, intimacy, affection, care, sincerity, connection, the strength of the bond, it diminishes, it weakens, and it disappears altogether. So what we wish to do in this space is develop a sincere friendship. And the Greeks call this philia. And philia is a very deep term. It's more than just a sincere friendship. It lays the foundations. And again, this is probably another live feed, right? It lays the foundations for deep, deep connection. There are so many terms in the Greek language, so many words for love in the Greek language. And in other cultures, there are even more. Other ancient languages, even more. But we have to begin to bypass the superficiality of wanting to be in a relationship for the sake of looking good or being accepted by our peers or by some form of social construct or social norm. So if you can resonate with this, maybe you've experienced it yourself, you've witnessed it, or you're familiar with it, place a number 2 in the comment box, please. And share your thoughts around that as well. Nicole says, meet yourself in all that you are and you will attract someone who aligns with you, the true you. And that's perfect, Nicole, because the next point we're speaking to is being inauthentic and lying. Now, even if they're just white lies. You see, in my own previous relationships, years ago, I was deeply inauthentic and I would lie. And I would lie in the relationship because I either didn't want to hurt the other person, because I was behaving in a way that I knew would hurt the other person, or because I was just ashamed of myself. I just thought maybe there was something in the relation, there was something in my behavior that that person would not like or would not appreciate. So I would tell little white lies to, of course, polarize myself. And we all do this. And there's a whole science to lying as well. There's deep evolutionary theory to lying as well. And that's another live feed topic, but not for this evening. But when we are inauthentic with ourselves, we are presenting a falsified version to our partners. Now, remember what I said at the beginning of this live feed. Apply this to yourself. When we are inauthentic with ourselves, we are polarizing ourselves. We are presenting a version of self that is not complete, that is not whole, because we are perhaps scared. And fear is the next point that I'll bring up, and I'll speak to that in a moment. But when we're inauthentic and we lie, our partners do not receive the fullness of who we are. Our partners do not receive this magical version of self. And a magical version of self does not mean a perfect version of self. It means the whole of who we are. And Emma says, always be transparent. Steph with 58 exclamation marks. Always be transparent. That way you are giving the other person the opportunity to decide whether they want to be with you or not. And that's beautiful and that's powerful. And that's the crux of being authentic and not lying. I don't know why you had to shout my name so loud. You should have capitalized my name as well though, Emma. I'm being facetious and cheeky. So, being inauthentic, not presenting the wholeness of who we are because we are potentially fearful of who we are, or we don't trust ourselves enough, or we have a low self-worth, that we feel or think that if we present in a particular way, the other person will not accept or appreciate us or understand us or be able to connect to us. That brings me into fears. But let me just stay on inauthentic and lying for a moment. When we lie, we are presenting a version of self that is not real to our partners. They are falling in love with someone, or they are loving or caring for someone, or behaving and interacting with someone that is not sustainably you. It's not real. This compounds and destroys the relationship. And eventually, you lose track of who you are. And I've been down that road before. It's painful for everybody involved. So deeply painful. If you can resonate with that, place a number 3 in the comment box. And I'd like to hear your thoughts as well. Or read your thoughts rather, to be a little bit more literal. Or maybe hear, because I'll be hear them in my head when I'm reading it. In my mind, in my brain. Is what are your feelings and your thoughts around lying and inauthenticity? Louisa, absolutely. You didn't put number 1 in the comment box, Louisa, to let me know that you're here. Women pick up lies exceptionally well. And they do so because women are biologically hardwired differently to men, especially in the brain. And there is a reason why women are exceptional at facial recognition. Thank you, Louisa. At detecting variance in tonality, in speech, and expression. That intuitive feeling that arises. It's all very neurological and hormone-based. And there's evolutionary reasons for that. It's quite exciting, actually. So men think that women don't know. Women know. Well, women know everything, and they know very well. Some can articulate it, some connect to it, some don't as well. But the hardware is there. That brings me into fears. Now, in this sense, when I'm speaking to fear, I'm speaking to the unexamined shadow. So what destroys relationships is when we move into relationships very hurt and driven. Hi Ruth, how are you? Driven by our unconscious selves. Driven by pain and fear that we aren't even aware of, because we have unexamined our shadow element of self. We have chosen not to be present to the wholeness of who we are. Tasha, how are you? So when we do that, we lose an aspect of self. And what happens is the painful, fractured, fragmented, broken parts of self are really driving our behavior. So let me give you an example. If we experience an argument with a partner and they say something that is hurtful, what will generally respond is not the conscious self that could be responsive, that could be articulate, that could be present, that can come from a place of love. Mark, how are you, brother? But rather, we react from a place of fear. We react from a dark place. We react from a fractured place. And we trigger each other emotionally. And what happens when we trigger each other emotionally is that the two people that are actually present there aren't the two people having a disagreement. It's either the inner child or inner wounding that is fighting with itself and fighting with the other. The other is simply a mirror and a reflection. And it becomes a lot more complex than that in psychological terms. But essentially, when we do not allow ourselves to be present to the relationship, we're hurting. Charlie says, shadows are shadowy and pop up throughout life. Got any tips? Choose to do the deep work. Essentially and effectively choose to do the deep work. Go deep and deep and deep and deep and deep within self. And explore what allows you to behave in particular ways. Examine the conversations that you have. Examine what upsets you. Examine what triggers you. In other words, what heightens your emotional state. If you experience a particular situation or someone says something, examine how you respond or react. Sometimes we say things in life and when we reflect back introspectively and we think, did I just say that? Was that really me? Well, it's a part of you that's unexamined. It's an aspect, a fractured aspect of you. If you have no mastery over what you're expressing, chances are it's the unconscious self that has mastery over you. Place number 4 in the comment box if you can relate to that. And the shadow's complex, like it's deep. It is really deep. And most people, most of us will just observe elements of our wounded selves, of our shadow selves. One bite-sized chunk at a time, because it can be so overwhelming. So deeply overwhelming. And these are conditioned responses that we have developed over the years that have allowed us to now be a particular way in life. Yeah. So next, jealousy. And jealousy is intimately linked to fear as well, and intimately linked to self-worth and self-esteem. But jealousy and even competitiveness, they go hand in hand. What does this mean? If we are overly competitive with our partners, because we are jealous of their achievements or their accolades, and rather than being supportive, coming from a place of love and care, we wish to be better than them for ego's sake. So jealousy, ego, competitiveness, this destroys relationships. Relationships are meant to be collaborative. Relationships are meant to be supportive. Relationships are meant to be nurturing and healing. This behavior comes from a very deep place of wounding. It's a place of not being seen, not being heard, not being understood. Perhaps as a young person, or perhaps there have been events or 1 or 2 events, even as a young adult, that have occurred in our lives that have really tainted our understanding of collaboration. Remember, from a systemic perspective, a collective, systemic, socio-cultural perspective, competition is bred in our society. It is the norm. Sometimes it transcends or transfers into our intimate relationships. So we really need to be mindful of our egos. If our partners are succeeding, being truly supportive and happy is a blessing. We are biologically hardwired to give. We are biologically hardwired to support those in our circle, yeah? So when we do this, we are living to our true nature per se. When we don't, we are causing disconnection, disharmony in our relationships. So we have to check the ego. We have to be mindful. We have to also understand jealousy is a combination of anger and fear. Potentially fear of loss. It could be fear of loss of anything. Angry that we don't have what they have. Frustrated. You know, when we start peeling this back, it comes down to self-worth, that we're not good enough, that we are not able enough, that we are not competent enough. So begin to connect to this place, yeah? Give me number 5 in the comment box if you can resonate with that. And if that makes sense to you. And any thoughts you have on that as well. On that jealousy, ego, competitiveness piece, yeah? Natalie says, I can't say I can relate too much because I find myself wanting to be better than my partner. I can understand competition as in wanting to be better than myself, but I love support my partner. I can't understand someone. I'm not sure what else that says. Okay, cool. But when I say resonate, It's not just about in your life as well. Maybe it's something that you've seen or that you understand. But when I'm saying resonate, don't just apply it to your own lives. Because what's important to notice is, where do you see it? Where do you see it in your environment? Yeah? Where do you see it outside of yourself? If you can notice these trends, these behaviors, then you will also notice them potentially if they occur in your own partnership as well. Yeah? It's really important. So the next point I want to speak to is that selfishness, self-absorption, using your partner. So this is really that first stage development, the first stage of a mature interaction, or that first stage of how we show up in our partnerships, yeah? So if you aren't truly owning your own development and growth as an individual, you can easily fall into patterns of codependence, yeah? You can easily fall into patterns that begin to unconsciously place expectations on your partner for them to be responsible for your happiness. And it's like, what can I get from my partner? What can I get from this relationship? What me? What can I get? What can I gain? What advantage can I take can I have in this relationship? And this is incredibly draining for the relationship and incredibly draining for your beloved. We often place the burden, depends if you're in this first stage of a relationship relating, first stage of relating or relational development. We often place the burden of our own growth on our partners or on our intimate relationships, to make up generally for the emotional groundwork that we are not willing to do. The reality is we need to do the work. We need to go deep into self. We need to want to connect to self. We need to want to love self. We need to want to respect self. We need to want to delve deep into one's wholeness, yeah? No, Melissa, it's not easy to be alone. It's actually beautiful to be in partner. It's beautiful to be alone as well. As long as we are conscious and we make a conscious decision to be in singledom, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful place to be. But it's also a beautiful place to be in partnership. If, like anything, we need to be conscious and aware. When we are conscious and aware, we're connected. When we are connected, we can be single in partnership, and it doesn't really matter. We can be multiple partnerships. As long as there's transparency, there's honesty, there's connection. People's personal preferences are their own, pending there's authenticity in that exchange, in that communication. There's conscious communication that takes place. That's what's important. So doing the work can be challenging, but ignorance, it's debilitating. So what we're doing here is we're creating a space to understand ourselves with greater efficacy, yeah? So what happens is when we become really codependent and we place all the burden of the responsibility on others, creates an extreme inequality in the relationship. And one person feels like they're always giving and the other's always receiving. And generally the person that is, we'll call it narcissistic, selfish, using, not always narcissistic, but has narcissistic tendencies. And I did a long video on this last week or the week before. You can check that out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, S.Sifandos. You'll see the narcissistic video there. And that's essentially deeply selfish behavior, but probably more slant on pathology as well, like pathological selfishness. But to give constantly and to take constantly are two very different things. So if your partner is always giving, or you're always giving, and the other's taking, eventually there's a lack of homeostasis and equilibrium in that partnership. And it will break down, it will deteriorate, and it will deteriorate deeply. But when we take responsibility for our own emotions and our internal well-being, our life changes. We take responsibility for our own healing, for our own observations of self. We take that weight of that unfair expectation away from our partnership and allow them to support us as an equal instead of having to carry us. And Charlie, yes, the answer to that, Charlie, is yes. Can each person support the other in the shadow journeys? Absolutely. If they are willing, if they are open, if they are connected, if they understand, if they have a yearning to, if the communication is conscious and open, the answer is yes. Absolutely, yeah? Absolutely. Most definitely. Next point. Number 6, in the comment box, if you can resonate with that point, wonderful people. Number 6. And any experiences you wish to share on that as well. It'll be really interesting to hear. Just remember, tribe, what you share, I guarantee and promise you someone will benefit from. So if you have a personal experience or something you wish to speak to, go for it. Speak to it. Open it up. People are reading these comments and they're going, wow, okay, I get that. I've experienced that. I'm not alone now. I'm connected. I'm not alone. Is one of the most remarkable feelings to be felt when we are known, when we feel known, when we feel that we are connected, when we feel that we are present, when we feel we are being heard. It's a beautiful feeling for nurturing, for growth, yeah? And if you're new to these live feeds, just place new in the comment box so that we know that you're new and the wonderful tribe and community can welcome you. So next, neglecting your relationship. How do we neglect our relationships? Well, simple. We don't place it in our hierarchy of values as a starting point. So we don't value the relationship, or we don't value ourselves, or we don't value our beloved. And we place other activities, other experiences consistently ahead of the relationship will eventually deteriorate. Like anything, it requires attention and intention. An experience, set of circumstances, a relationship requires attention and intention for it to flourish. And if we neglect our relationships, we are essentially neglecting the love that could transpire in that relationship. So in order to not neglect, we need to prioritize. And in order to prioritize, we must be able to connect to that relationship, but more importantly, connect to that person and connect to our growth within that relationship. So I say often, this is very important, that there are 4 questions that each person in the relationship needs to ask. These are the most important questions you can ask when you're in a relationship. Am I growing because of me, my contribution in this relationship? Am I growing because of the contribution by my partner in this relationship? Is my partner growing because of the contribution of me in this relationship? And is my partner growing because of their contribution in the relationship? And then the 4 questions you ask yourself. And the 5th question, bonus question, is our relationship, is that contributing to the greater whole? Is that servicing humanity in a positive way, in an impactful, meaningful way? So, neglecting your relationship is dangerous for the relationship, for the longevity and sustainability of the relationship. You give me number 7 in the comment box if you can resonate with that, yeah? Next, this is an interesting one. So, letting yourself go, okay? Allowing yourself to not be who you were when you first met your partner. See, when we first meet people, we polarize. Nikhil, how are you, brother? We polarize our expressions. When we first meet people, we generally present the grandest version of self. But that's a fragmented expression because it's not the best version of self. But what happens is in relationships, we become complacent. And we achieve a certain level of comfort in a relationship, and then we just stop caring about our physical bodies, we stop caring about the conversation, we stop caring about the way we express ourselves, we stop caring about what's important in life, what was important in the beginning stages of the relationship. And again, it could mean our physical health falls by the wayside. It means that our personal growth, our own personal growth and expansion is deprioritized. And effectively this leads to unconscious communication. It leads to complacency. Yes, I will, brother. Yes, I will. And it refers to, we selfishly ignore our partner's feelings. Because we become, again, isolated and we move into this bubble, yeah? We move into this bubble and we place less emphasis on the best version of ourselves, which is the whole version of ourselves. But we cease. We get this with this comfortability. Have you ever experienced that in a relationship? It's like, oh, I'm in a relationship now. I don't have to look after myself. I don't have to worry about what I say or think. It's like we think that we're in a relationship and there's a level of comfort and we can just stop working on the relationship. That doesn't make any sense at all. Because when we neglect the relationship, we're effectively neglecting a component of ourselves. Sit with that for a moment. Because relationships are mirrors. They're insight into the darkest chasms of our being, into the deepest chasms of our being. So it becomes so important that we understand what the relationship means to us, for us, and what we mean to that relationship, to that person. So we need to value ourselves. When we value ourselves and we care about our purpose, we care about our posturing, it changes the way we choose to continue to interact in a conscious manner. Yeah? So number 8 in the comment box, with respect to not letting ourselves go spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. Like really being present to who we are, yeah? And Charlie says, what does not bathing mean as a reflection? Well, I'm not sure the context around that, but if they were bathing a great deal when they were with you and then after some time they stopped bathing, I really can't answer that question. It could mean that they have stopped caring about their personal hygiene, or they, in more extreme cases, have developed some form of pathology or experimenting with. I really don't know, Charlie. It's an interesting question, but I don't think I can help you there, my friend. Yeah. It's something that you probably need to openly, very transparently address. See, conscious, open, transparent communication is so key in this place, yeah? Really, really key. Like, super key. Charlie, if you've had 3 smelly partners, it's probably, I would say that there's a pattern there. Patterns are important to look at, by the way. And if you can see consistency in patterning, I'd be definitely looking at that, no matter what the conditions of that are, yeah? So next, stubbornness. The need to always be right. This one sucks. So the need to always be right is so detrimental to relationships. One of the most damaging ways people respond to fear and insecurities by shaming others. And Johnny says, how about when the mum can't accept you, so she torn between the both? What should she do? Johnny, ask that question again, brother, please. How about when the mum can't accept you, so she tears between the both? Ask that question again, please, Johnny, if you don't mind, brother. So, when we are afraid or we feel threatened or triggered into employing our coping mechanisms, so to speak. And these are conditioned coping mechanisms that we have, that we develop over time, yeah? We sometimes try to undermine the person we see as threatening, and we want to shame them and attack them, right? The alternative is working through the circumstance, which requires vulnerability and openness. And vulnerability and openness and trust is so important in a relationship, but allows us to not have this incessant need to always be right. So we cease to focus on the ego. We cease to focus on the fear and the pain that comes disagreeing. Okay, and the fear that we're going to be isolated, we're not going to be understood, we're going to be rejected, we're going to be abandoned, because we choose to be vulnerable and deeply express how we're feeling in that moment. So shaming can be a statement, a tone of voice, a facial expression, and it can communicate an idea that we think the other person is inferior, that there's something wrong with who they are. But you can also shame someone by simply rolling your eyes, by even your body language. Very, very particular body language can do this. Being sarcastic, for example. Like, if we were to use a few examples. What is the matter with you? Be a real man, be a real woman, whatever that means. You're crazy. You're desperately needy. Yeah. These are examples of shaming. These are examples of really pushing to always need to be right, per se. Learning to express how you feel versus shaming someone or calling someone names, and reverting to judgment or trying to undermine your partner is so much more powerful. And there's a difference between pushing love away and building a deeper, trustworthy, encompassing, worthwhile connection and a sense of trust in the relationship. So when we haven't dealt with our emotional baggage, our shadow work, or we've developed healthy coping strategies for triggering circumstances, we often revert to damaging behaviors, conditioned behaviors like global comparison, which lowers our self-esteem, belittling, shaming, being aggressive, disrespecting the people that we love. And this kind of behavior slowly breaks down the emotional stability and the trust, the foundation of trust in the relationship. And unless each partner feels emotionally safe, which is based around trust, there is no intimacy. And without intimacy, the relationship does not exist, yeah? Does not exist. Now give me a number 9 in the comment box if you can relate to that. Just going to look at some of these comments. Johnny says she wants us to work, but her mum doesn't like me because I'm older by 10 years. She's confused as what to do. She needs to be autonomous then, Johnny. She needs to be more independent. She needs to be authentic, and she needs to stand within her own power and not be dictated to by externalities, whether that be a mother figure or a mother or a friend or society or an externalized value set. The problem is, though, that unless she's willing to go deep within herself and really trust her own self and her own being, you're going to struggle quite a bit. So, and I'm sorry to hear that, my man. Passive aggressiveness. This is tough. And this is more of a personality disposition. So it's probably really passive aggressiveness is probably really part of the shadow work. I don't want to spend too much time here. And we all know what passive aggressive behavior looks like. And again, eventually, it's a very demeaning behavior, and it's an ignorant behavior as well. And it also really demonstrates to our loved ones that we don't care about them. We don't care about their feelings. We become emotionally despondent. We become emotionally unintelligent. We are emotionally unintelligent. Passive aggressive behavior is unintelligent behavior, yeah? So, well, I think I need to speak to emotional intelligence a little bit as well. I think it's important to make note of emotional intelligence because, and the lack of empathy. So lack of empathy and compassion in relationships, so I'll keep it to that because there's various facets to emotional intelligence. But lack of empathy and compassion in relationship destroys relationship. It chips away at relationships. So if we cannot understand and connect to the feelings of our partners, if we cannot feel what they're feeling, then act compassionately towards them when they are sad, despondent, in pain, the relationship will break down. The other will not feel held, will not feel safe, will not feel known, will not feel heard. This completely destroys a relationship very quickly. When we cease to care about the feelings of the other. Place number 10 in the comment box if you can resonate and relate to that. That's a really powerful one. And I'd love to read your thoughts on empathy and compassion with respect to enhancing a relationship and how it bonds people, how it draws people together. Yeah? That would be really interesting. Let me read your thoughts, and everybody else read your thoughts there as well. It'll be beautiful. Trying to change the other. Trying to change your partner, yeah? So it's very natural to grow and change over time. I mean, this happens. This is, as we expose to different experiences and more experiences and new experiences, we just wish to change. Even if we don't wish to change, we just naturally transform and transmute. And as we change, our relationship with our partner will have to adapt and transform as well. And with clear, loving, conscious, open, transparent communication, I've developed a model around conscious communication with 12 key principles that we can utilize in order to assist us in being this grand version of self. The individuals in the relationship and the relationship itself can evolve fluidly, pending value sets remain in line as well. Okay, so there's various facets that plug into this equation, so to speak, that I'm referring to. Adjusting the parameters of our relationship as we both change, as both partners change, is healthy, and it's to be expected. Like, transformation in relationships should be expected because both people are growing, yeah? But it's about being consistent in the communication and the connection, the understanding to self. So what is deeply unhealthy is trying to change the core of who your partner is to suit your needs, their unique qualities, their personality traits, their values, their love, who they are. Trying to create this kind of change sends your partner the message that you don't accept them as they are, you don't appreciate them, you don't love them, you don't really honor them. And I'll love you if. I'll care for you if. I'll be there for you if. It's not unconditional love, and it's a love that comes with a checklist, and it's a love that comes with rigid expectation and conditions. And as I've learned the last few days doing some deep shadow work myself around unconscious expectations that I've had in my relationships, it always keeps coming up. Yeah, it just keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. Shadow work is a journey. Is that rigidity and expectation and rigidity when it does not work. It does not work. It is so damaging to the relationship, to the other. And when the other feels hurt in that way, they're going to struggle to be loving, connected, and intimate and inspired by you. Yeah. When you try to change your partner, no matter what it may be, the way they speak, their friends, the circle of influence, their job, the way they dress, the way they feel, their interests, their values, you're telling them that they can only have your love and your affection if they discard of the core of who they are, their true self. It's like, and they become what you want them to be, then how does that equate to a loving, connected relationship? It does not. It really does not. It puts our partners in a painful place of having to choose be authentic or be loved. Now, if they are triggered by not being loved, they'll probably choose to make all these changes. They will cultivate resentment, unconsciously and consciously, and it will destroy the relationship. It will break down the relationship completely. It leads to poorer self-esteem and self-worth, and the emotional health of both parties because of the tension felt. It's not going to be useful at all. Becomes really deeply dangerous. Number 11 in the comment box, if you can relate to trying to change the other. If you understand that, recognize that, have seen it in others. Number 11. Power plays. Power plays suck. They're disempowering. Again, probably really linked to ego, really linked to the jealousy and the competitiveness. Power plays, always trying to be better than your partner. Just don't fucking do it. Don't be in a relationship to be better. than anyone. Be in relationship to be of service to the other, and simultaneously to be of service to the evolution of your own self. But don't do it for purely selfish reasons. Not healthy. So we've spoken to a substantial amount of information in this live feed this evening, and we've really gone deep into some of the ways we can, in a subtle manner, destroy the foundations and the bonds that we share in relationships and the intimacy that we share in relationship. And it's not just through sexual infidelity. There's so much more than just that. Because whether or not sexual infidelity has been an issue in your life, in your relationship, ask yourself if you or even your partner may be betraying your relationship in one of the ways that we've mentioned, in other ways, and make the difference between something that's sustainable and something that is very short term. Charlie asks, shadow versus neurosis, is there a difference? Yes and no. Neurosis can be a byproduct of living in shadow or being controlled by shadow for too long, depending on the intensity of it, the way it's interpreted, the experiences had, the continuation of it. Well, neurosis is quite a potent state, a psychological state, psychobiological, neurobiopsychological state, should I say. So, beautiful people, we're coming to the end of this live feed, and I hope that you receive something from this. And of course, please share this video if you feel someone may benefit from this video. Please share this video with your loved ones, and feel free to comment, ask questions. Of course, if I can get to them, I definitely will. Thank you so much for being here. Deeply grateful. Of course, as well, check out my and I'll put a link in the if I haven't already, I'll put a link in the title page. Check out my online program, Chaos to Clarity, and I speak to relationships deeply in this program. It's a huge component of the program. But there's more to it than that as well. Of course, they're all around personal growth and connecting to self, understanding one's purpose, values, etc. But looking forward to seeing you again very soon. Many blessings on your journey. Once again, if you're new, and I'm just signing off, if you're new, place new in the comment box so the tribe can welcome you, of course. Thank you very much. Deeply grateful. And again, share the video if it resonates, and I shall see you again very soon. Your blessings on your journey. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your presence and being here. And please apply some of these principles in your relationship to self and to others to create a more meaningful relationship. One of substance, depth, clarity, glory, and love. Thank you.